I didn't actually realize that we were getting other cards with the champion, which is sweet. It means these mini champion expansions aren't just the champion card, but they're also some supporting cast with them. So, Legends of Runeterra Twitter posted this today. So let's take a peek at what they are and give some thoughts. And I skimmed them when someone posted them in Discord, but I'm gonna really sit down and dig into them here today for a quick run through. So Aphelios is the new champion. We've looked at him. This card's really sweet. So 2-1 for 1 elusive. On Nexus Strike, it draws a card and then it shuffles itself into the top 3 cards of your deck, which seems great. This is a reasonable way. Yeah, the artwork is gorgeous, like a lot of the artwork in this game, but this is a really good Nightfall enabler, right? This is a target card, so it's going to allow you to push damage somewhat consistently, and then it's a cheap card that costs 1 that you're going to be able to play out as your first card each turn, and it's going to keep flooping itself back into your deck so you can play it out consistently. Yeah, there's a couple of places that have all of them at once, but I want to go through them one at a time, so looking at the videos seems like a fine way to do that. Yeah, it also blocks Zoe and other things early, which is nice. If you shuffle the entire deck. I don't actually know what the shuffle keyword means in Runeterra. I don't know if this reorders the whole of your deck or if this just means it inserts itself randomly into the top 3. The Sky Shadows. When I'm summoned, refill 2 spell mana if you behold a night card. So behold is a keyword that means if you have a Nightfall card in your hand or in play. So this card is kind of free in a way, right? Yeah, like this is another card that's like an okay Nightfall enabler. And the fact that it gives you spell mana back means that if you're playing a deck that can leverage spell mana, that this is basically free. One thing that's really sweet about this is like frequently if you had like a Nightfall card you wanted to play on 3, you often had to skip your turn to play. So with this, you can play this on 2 while still effectively banking your turn to mana because it gives you spell mana. And then on 3, you can use spell mana to still enable something like, a Doom Beast or a Diana or something like that. Yeah, it notably holds up Pale Cascade as well, or Stalking Shadows. Yeah, lots of things like that. 3-1 for 2 is an okay rate, but this is a big tempo card, right? And tempo is super important in Runeterra because players are often keep their hands very full of cards. The Fangs. 3-2 for 4 with Lifesteal. Invoke a Celestial card that costs 3 or less. Yeah, that also seems like it's potentially playable. Like, Lifesteal is great, buffering our life total sounds good, and this basically draws a card from that Celestial pool of 1s to 3s, so it seems like another card. I don't know exactly where this is going to fit in, but definitely seems playable. Each of the target cards are based on one of Aphelios' weapons. Oh, that's interesting. The Cloven Way. Nightfall. So if it's not the first card you've played in a turn, stun an enemy. If it's a follower, stun it again at the beginning of the next round start. Neat. So something that we had poked at in the past is Yasuo Leona as a mid-range control deck, and this could be a sweet target card in Yasuo Leona, right? Like a 5-4 for 5 with Overwhelm is a close to reasonable stat line. It incidentally gives you stun. So like, again, Yasuo is one of those cards that's like struggled to have playable cards when you don't have Yasuo. So like every card like this that's potentially playable and incidentally stuns that's still good when you don't have Yasuo seems like it has potential for that kind of archetype. Yeah, the art IP in this game, I really love it. Big agree that the art IP in Runeterra is a big draw point. The Veiled Temple. Each round, the first time you play 2 other cards, refill 2 spell mana and grant your strongest ally +1/+1. Panzer! Thanks for the 3/4 of a year. I really appreciate that. Welcome back. This is neat. So, this is a landmark, I would assume. It actually doesn't say landmark on the card, but I assume it's a landmark. Is there a frame? Does this frame mean landmark? It's weird that it doesn't say it on the... Yeah, we're gonna go over the patch notes too. I'm gonna do it all at the same time. I think it's just there. Yeah, and this is a landmark. So yeah, it says, sorry, you're right. I think I said spell. It says refill 2 mana. That's huge. Yeah, the fact, so landmarks often struggle to be competitive because they're cards that typically don't impact the board the turn that you play them. But the fact that this is a card that can not only pay for itself, but end up generating you extra mana in the long run really goes a long way towards mitigating that effect, right? And this is notably grant, which is a keyword that means this is a permanent buff. So the fact that this pays for itself over 2 turns and then grants you, there is a chance still that the fact that this is 4 mana and again doesn't impact the board. Also worth noting here, the wording says the first time you play 2 other cards. So you can't play this and then play another card off of spell mana the same turn you play it and trigger it. That being said, you could have like 3 spell mana banked and play this on 4 and then play 2 other cards that are cheap immediately after. Like, think about, you've banked some spell mana, you play this on 4, you play like Messenger Sigil, Pale Cascade, and then this immediately triggers the turn you play it. So like, it's not free to trigger this the turn you play because you have to play 2 other cards, but it's also not impossible. Yeah, sure, Danger Needle, super cool start chart plus a 0 mana card. This card sounds super reasonable with Zoe, right? Yeah, this is a card that I don't know what this is going to go into, but maybe this could pop up some other things that we haven't seen yet. If you behold the messenger, grant celestial allies everywhere +1/+1. It's probably a meme card. I would assume. I guess one thing to think about is if you wanted to build, we'll probably build around this at some point. But like, so something to think about is the best way to get messenger is that you put the 5 messengers into your deck, and you could build an Aphelios deck because Aphelios, one of his weapons, summons a 2-cost minion out of your deck. So you could messenger sigil, put dogs into your deck and not play any 2 mana units, and then Aphelios' weapon guaranteed pulls you that back out. Pulls you the doggo out right away. Because remember, Behold is not just in hand, it's also in play. So we'll probably take a poke at building around this at some point. Not right away, but eventually we'll get to it. But something with Aphelios and Messenger Sigil and like Star Charts and Zoes could mean that you hit enough messengers to have this be something that you could use. All right, some non-target cards. Stress Test. Remove Fleeting from all cards in hand. When I'm discarded, draw 1. Okay, wait. So is this saying when I'm discarded, draw 1 Fleeting? Does this mean you draw a card off the top of your deck and the card you're drawing, the new card you draw is Fleeting? Is that what this wording means? Yes. Okay. Interesting. So, So this is another kind of discard payoff because it gives you, it's worded like Pull Shark. Okay, so it works like Pull Shark. Perfect. So it kind of like you could discard this for free. Obviously, the big play with this card is we clearly need to, it's not Invoke the Infinite. What's the 10 mana card that you invoke that fills your hand with, Living Legend. So Living Legend stress testing is the big meme, right? You fill your hand with fleeting stuff, and then you stress test and you get to keep all of them. Is the what do we go big in terms of that? Yeah. So that would be the big like deck building payoff type thing you could do with this. That seems kind of neat. It's also worth noting that this is what's what I'm searching for? Yeah, you could pair it with pick a card too, could be okay. This is a burst card, so pairing a 1-mana burst card that pairs with Targon enables your nightfall cards okay too as well. But yeah, pick a card is probably like the less obnoxious thing to do with this, but past pick a card, you could also like this is probably good in that that Burblefish Twisted Fate deck, right? Because that archetype can often play Rummage too, and this is a payoff for Rummage. Like this lets Rummage draw 3 cards in Twisted Fate. Yeah, so like the Twisted Fate Burblefish deck seems like this is a great card to slot into there, both in terms of making your 3 copies of pick a card better and letting Rummage draw 3 cards to level Twisted Fate even quicker. Sure, yeah, you could ignore the front half and like just when I'm discarded, draw 1 fleeting, play this and discard aggro 2 potentially. But yeah, this seems super sweet in a couple different things. Troll Gifts. Grant an ally regeneration. If they have it already, grant them 2/2. I like this design a lot. Regeneration is a really powerful effect, so the fact that it makes like damage based, this also pseudo heals something too. Which is neat. I wonder if maybe we could see this. Maybe this could make Soraka playable alongside Freljord, perhaps. I like that if the thing you're targeting already has regeneration, it makes it bigger. Yeah, this is an incredible card with Braum. That's a good point. So Braum already has regen, and this would make Braum a 2/7 by default, and it could be useful even when you don't have him out. I like that a lot. Another sweet design. Close your eyes. Gluttony. Kill an ally with Last Breath to summon a follower from your deck that costs 1 more. I don't know that this is necessarily very good. The fact that it's fast and not burst, meaning that your opponent can respond to it and stop your spell from working is whatever. Yeah, this is a lot of like not only is this fast, so it's interruptible, but it can specifically only target things that have Last Breath, and 3 mana is a lot for this kind of one-shot effect, I think. So I'd kind of be surprised if this is like the least exciting card out of the group so far. I'm just saying something because like this group's had a lot of reasonable cards in it so far. Oh, that's a scary good observation. You can use it on a Nivea to get Rekindler. That sounds terrifying. Yeah, that actually sounds great. Yeah, that archetype is annoying. So like, yeah, that I could definitely see that rekindling the Nivea control deck for sure. Can it target champions? Yeah, an ally with Last Breath to summon a follower. Yeah, so it goes Phoenix into Rekindler. Yeah, okay. Flurry of Fists. Burst, grant an ally 1/0 in quick attack. So that's permanent 1 attack and quick attack. If it already has quick attack, grant it double attack instead. Oh, so this is perfect. So you can give Lee Sin triple attack now, right? So if you put Flurry of Fists onto Lee Sin, you can hit him 3 times. This card seems real good, and it seems real obnoxious. Like, quick attack, and then double attack. Oh gosh, putting this on Draven. Wow, that sounds disgusting. This is also really good with Fiora. I really hope there are Fiora or Lee Sin changes in these balance patch notes that we're going to look at in a second. Powdered Pandemonium. Summon a Powder Monkey, which is a 2/1 ephemeral that deals damage to both things. Give a random enemy vulnerable this round each time you've plundered this game. This one seems mediocre. Wait, summon a Powder Monkey and... Wait, do I get a Powder Monkey for every time I've plundered? Do I get multiple monkeys? If I've plundered a few times, do I get a few monkeys? Yes. Okay. Sure. Sure. If we get multiple monkeys, that might be fine. Wild Claws. An ally strikes an enemy. If it has Overwhelm, deal excess damage to the enemy nexus. This card seems real bad. An ally strikes an enemy. If it has Overwhelm, it deals extra damage to the enemy nexus. Yeah, it's both slow and it's a lot of mana. I get that it's like a one-sided fight effect, so like they're not striking you back, but I feel like this didn't need to be both slow and 5 mana. Yeah, like Concerted Strike is a great comparison, right? Concerted Strike lets you have 2 things strike something and it's fast. It doesn't have this really cute, if it has Overwhelm, deal extra to the nexus, but I feel like the balance on this card is way off. I feel like this should either be fast or it should cost, I don't know, let's say 3 mana if I'm only getting to strike with 1 thing and it's slow. Like comparing this to Concerted Strike, the text on this seems kind of comical. If it was fast, it would not be comparable to Atrocity. So an enemy doesn't include the Nexus, right? So it wouldn't. This isn't Atrocity. You can't just hit your opponent's Nexus with this card. An enemy means one of their things on the board. It would say any target, right? If I could hit their Nexus. So yeah. So I agree. If this could hit the Nexus, I think this card would be fine. But I don't think it should hit the Nexus. I think it should just be their things, and this should either be fast or it should be about 3 mana. So I expect that this card probably won't see play and will eventually get a change. Yeah, or something else. I honestly don't mind there being more strike spells in other regions. I don't mind expanding that outside of Demacia, but like give me something, right? Like don't just give me crappy Concerted Strike. That's basically what this is. In most instances, this is bad Concerted Strike. You're never alone. Molten Breath. An ally with Fury strikes the 2 weakest enemies. This is another stinker. This is like kinda cute with dragons, I guess. Nothing really notable here. It's yeah. Hush says I imagine spending 6 mana on this card and getting your Fury ally hushed in response. This is this is another where if it was fast, it might be okay. Yeah, I guess it theoretically flips Shyvana, but the threat of Hush. Well, no, so like Hush hurts some of these cards. But Hush literally makes this card do nothing. So effects like this check when you play them and on resolution. So this, when you pick it, it has to have Fury, and when this resolves, it also has to have Fury. Yeah, if the thing you're targeting loses Fury in response, this no longer does anything. So, yeah, that's like extra bad. Can we be primarily, maybe? So Runeterra doesn't really do bad cards for the sake of limited like other games do. Their limited formats tend to be higher power level. Which is one of the reasons why I like their expeditions. Alright, so just to pull up the full summary and give a quick rundown here before we dive into patch notes. Flight seems sweet. Flight and Sky Shadows both seem like they're going to fit into a few different things. Stress Testing seems like a potentially really powerful build-around card, both for meme potential with Living Legends, as well as Rummage and Pick a Card with Twisted Fate. Troll Gift seems absurd with Braum and just a good flexible card in general. Starbones, a meme card. Gluttony seems sweet with Anivia into Rekindler, but narrow outside of that. Flurry of Fists seems like a very obnoxious card. It seems like it'll be good in Shen Fiora. It feels like it's potentially good with Lee Sin. It seems like it could open up a new archetype in terms of Draven Ionia, like giving Draven one attack and double attack with this seems absurd, especially if you're able to level Draven and then he has Overwhelm double attack. Like Flurry. Flurry has a lot of potential. The Fangs seems sweet. Veiled Temple seems sweet. I think I could see both of these ended up in real decks. Powder Monkeys seems like a potential meme card, but not very competitive. Wild Claws and Molten Breath just seem wildly unplayable at a glance. I would be surprised if they do anything based on their costs and what their techs are. And then the Cloven Way here seems sweet. This could be a card that I would like to try with Leona Yasuo. It's another reasonable card that stuns things, so I could see this being decent. All right, does someone have patch notes? Runeterra news. 2.1 patch notes. This is a balanced patch in addition to these cards. So Lunar Celebration. Are these login rewards for 7 days? Sweet. It's time for, you'll even get a free copy of Aphelios. They're going to give you a free champion. That sounds great. Card updates. Misfortune. Removed Overwhelm after leveling. Yeah, it seems fine. I like that. It means this means that like you can block her more meaningfully. She's still a good aggressive card, but when she levels up, you could actually block on occasion. Like you're still gonna get blasted. Like she's still gonna kill you a lot of the time, but this offers a little bit more counterplay even when she levels. Victor. Level up requirement has gone from play 8 cards to play 7 cards. Play or round start, get a hex core upgrade. That's sweet. So he's a little bit easier to level, and he gives you a hex core upgrade to start. And this also gives you one when you start. That seems fine. This is notably a buff to the augment archetype in general, and it's going to it's good with rummage and stuff like that too. So getting a free card with him right away to rummage away seems fine. Followers, landmarks, and spells. Where are the other champion changes, chat? Lee Sin doesn't appear to find anything on the control F. There is no mention of Lee Sin or Fiora in this entire update. That's incredibly unfortunate. That's a huge downer. I mean, I guess I'm excited for the other things to come, but like, yeah, there's no buffs to champions other than Victor, and there's no Lee Sin change, and they're printing Flurry of Fists on top of that. I'm also kind of surprised Draven dodged the nerf bat. Grand Plaza. We're losing the extra toughness on Grand Plaza. Yeah, that seems fine. This is mostly neutral. I don't think this card needed a change, but I don't think it's bad that they changed it. I think this change will make people happy, so that's good. Yeah, like this. Oh, this is a big nerf to scouts. Yeah, Misfortune and Grand Plaza. Scouts are gonna take a big hit. War Chefs going from a 1/3 to a 2/2. Sure, maybe Shen Fiora plays this card again. Maybe. No, this was not the patch they locked in before the holidays. That was the January patch. Homecoming. Recall an ally unit or landmark to recall an enemy unit or landmark. Sure, we made this card cost 4. This card's probably not playable at 4 still, but it's definitely less unplayable than it was previously. Greenglade Elder. Well, I don't even know what this card was before. We're going from a 1/1 to a 3/1. When I'm summoned, grant all allies in hand +1/+1. Probably still not good. I mean, it's a strict upgrade, but probably still not good. Daddy Farah! No! Don't nerf my daddy! When I'm summoned, create 3 decimates in hand. When I'm summoned, create 2 decimates in hand. Now, this is fine. This is fine. I think the number of games 2 decimates versus 3 decimates is going to change is like, yeah, like the 3rd decimate. Honestly, there's corner cases where this is a buff because Daddy Pharaoh filling your hand and burning cards for the next turn or 2 is like a real thing that happened in a number of mid-range and control decks. So like, I don't think having one less decimate is going to change the outcome of many games, and it's going to make things less awkward in some situations. So yeah, I think this change is fine. This change is good. I think this is reasonable. Blade of Exile costs 1. This is a big Riven buff. This is sweet. This makes this way more aggressive. I think Riven was super. I mean, we played Riven in a few decks already, right? Like this is a really good change. The fact that you can go from no fragments played to 4 mana Blade of Exile, yeah, that sounds great. Ooh, and they made Blade Squire a 2/1. Sure. Yeah, this is on rate for an aggressive unit now, and this is more aggressively costed. I like it. This is great. Love it. Both of these changes are good. We didn't nerf Lee Sin. We didn't nerf Fiora. We didn't even mention them. Just not even a blurb. Control F doesn't even mention that we're watching them or that we're happy or unhappy with them. This seems like an incredible mistake. I agree that Hush is a card that feels bad to play against, but Hush is arguably the best tool. I think one of the reasons why Hush is so popular is because of Lee Sin and Fiora, because those cards are so polarizing and hard to answer, and making this is the first Runeterra patch in my 8 months where I'm looking at some of these balance changes and I'm going, the lack of changes, like, this feels like a big miss. For the record, I think this change is fine if you address the combo kills in the room. But I think if you're leaving Lee Sin and Fiora how they are, nerfing this card, the best counterplay against them, is a huge mistake. It feels like a big miss. Oh no! Oh no! It got worse, chat. It got worse than the Hush nerf. Look at what they did to my boy. Look at the way they massacred my boy. Oh no! This is worse than the Hush nerf. So like, okay, so let's take a step back and analyze. So I think there is a chance that this nerf is them attempting to make Lee Sin worse without nerfing Lee Sin. That being said, Pale Cascade is one of the few things that makes so many fringe decks playable. Let's look at the aggro section on my site. Elusive Tempo. This deck's only competitive because of Pale Cascade. Spooky Rates. This deck had already fallen off in popularity and power level, and Pale Cascade was a big thing that helped it be competitive. Invoke Aggro, another Pale Cascade deck that already struggles to keep up, that now has had one of its best cards taken away. What about mid-range decks? What do we got in here? Twisted Diana. This is another deck that like really depends on Pale Cascade to push damage, and now suddenly all of these decks can no longer race because Pale Cascade is no longer there to let them race. Yeah, like I don't know, like I don't think this card is playable at 2 mana 1/1. It's just like I guess you play it because there's nothing better. It's also a Diana nerf, right? Like Diana's a champion that already struggled to be competitive. Like could we have just made this card cost 1? I have to say those are the changes I'm the biggest fan of in Runeterra, where I hate changes like this where they're strict downgrades. I like when instead of just making a card worse, they make it different. And I feel like taking the second attack off of this without giving it something else, like a reduced cost or some other type of benefit, feels like a miss. Yeah, I agree. I'm really glad Aphelios is coming because outside of I like the Blade to Exile change. The Blade to Exile buff to Riven seems huge. This is nice. I don't know if it's good enough, but it's nice. I really, to not be completely negative, I love the Blade to Exile change. Riven's a card that I like. I really don't like this Hush change without a Lee Sin change and a Fiora change coming as well. And Pale Cascade, I feel like a lot of my B-list Targon decks were only competitive because Pale Cascade lets you jump up and randomly kill people sometimes. And losing the ability for this card to allow you to do that. And yeah, and the nerf to Diana, I didn't even think about it. It does, yeah, Diana's Pale Cascade too. The fact that it's a nerf to Diana too feels like a real big slap. Yeah, I don't know. I was expecting more buffs, but I also don't fault them for not having more buffs. But I feel, honestly, the thing that feels most erroneous in these patch notes out of everything is that the lack of a mention of Fiora and Lee Sin. Like, even if they didn't want to change those cards today, the fact that they didn't even communicate to us that, like, hey, these are on our radar, because from a power level perspective, I don't think Fiora and Lee Sin are necessarily too good. I'm pretty sure based on the metrics, like what was Cosmic's? What was the last meta report that Cosmic did? It's a week old at this point, but it's close enough. Media. Cosmic's last meta report, I don't think they had win rates that were out of line. This meta report, January 25th. So Lee Sin only had a 52% win rate. Fiora Shen had a 54% win rate. That's so close to the threshold of not being okay. And even Plaza Scouts, like how do you nerf to, like, even looking at this, right? How does Plaza Scouts get its two best cards nerfed at 8% and 53%, and Lee Sin and Fiora just get left alone. At 6 and 54 and 12 and 52. Yeah, okay, looking at this, I'm more annoyed. Like, and also, too, I really liked the Plaza Scouts deck as a whole. The Plaza Scouts deck and the types of gameplay that it generates and the types of games it plays, I like the types of gameplay that Plaza Scouts generated, and what's the best way to put it? I know what I'm about to say is super subjective, but I never feel like I want to close Runeterra and do something else after I play against Plaza Scouts. The games I play against that archetype are usually good. Lee Sin frequently makes me want to close Runeterra and do something else. Fiora, not quite as often as Lee Sin, but it's close. Like, Lee Sin and Fiora are both, yeah. Someone mentioned Draven Ezreal didn't get any changes. That's not strictly true. They're a daddy Pharaon deck. So Pharaon getting nerfed is I agree that it's probably not much of a change. In fact, I'm kind of surprised looking at this metric, 14% and 54%, that, yeah. Who accumulated this data? This is data based off of the Mobalytics API that Riot provides API data. So these metrics are based on the Riot API data from Platinum, Diamond, and Masters players. Yeah, I don't know. I'm worried. I'm worried about the game after this patch. Looking at these changes, I am glad to have diversified back into Magic a little bit. If I'm being blunt, the addition of Flurry of Fists, the nerfing of Hush, the nerfing of Pale Cascade, the no mention of either of those. Yeah, it feels like a miss. I don't know. We're still going to go back to doing Runeterra stuff after this patch drops tomorrow, because I don't want to cold turkey it, but I agree. I am very, very low on what these changes did overall. I'm excited to play with some of these cards. I just, I'm not excited to concede to Lee Sin a bunch while I play with these cards, because there's no way Lee Sin doesn't get more popular with these changes. There's like 0% chance Lee Sin does not get more popular. Fiora is probably going to get more popular too. And honestly, here's the other thing too. Fiora gets more popular. Pale Cascade was previously the single best card against Fiora in your tiny target unit decks, because Pale Cascade could turn your 1/1 into a 3/3, so Fiora has to have a combat trick to not trade with it. So the fact that you can't Pale Cascade to save your Zoe from Fiora anymore, like, that's such a kick. It's such a kick. Yeah, blah. I don't even feel like this is what they did. They nerfed the decks that I enjoy playing the most, and they left the decks that I dislike playing against the same or potentially made them better. That's what this patch did. To be concise, this patch and this new card drop hurt the decks that I enjoy playing, and it made the decks that I often just auto-concede against better. And that's frustrating. All right, we're gonna play some Magic for a little bit. We're gonna give it a chance, and we'll try and play some games tomorrow. But yeah, if you missed any of that, was a 40-minute spoiler review plus patch notes review that's gonna ramble and end up on my YouTube channel.